looking for Kane, an early chance, an early England goal. Short delivery, and it's Harry Maguire. Luke Shaw full of confidence now, Harry Kane, that should do it. This England team continue to write their own. Sterling comes back to Harry Kane, and Busher. Mount's corner, headed in by Jordan Henderson. Unbelievable.
Hello and welcome back to What the Falk at the Euros. We said at the beginning of the tournament that we were going to have a preview and a review show for each and every England and Scotland game. And while Scotland did keep up their promise of only playing 3 games, England are bloody well going for it. And thus today, because the timescales are short, we're doing a review and a preview of England's previous game and the next game. Most importantly, though, we'll finally have a show that allows 2 people with the same name on the show, the 2 best Matts that I know on the planet. First and foremost, it's Scouse Matt, which you will be referred to on this show from This Is Tranmere. Scouse Matt, how are you doing? Are you all right?
Can I be Birkenhead Matt instead?
Yeah, you can be Birkenhead Matt.
We're not Scousers. We're not Scousers. We're from Birkenhead.
Oh, have I did a faux pas there straight away?
Yeah, well, do you know what? Nothing changes on this podcast, does it? You know, faux pas, too pissed to do the show. You know, it's just another What the Falk, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the Croatia game, I can barely remember what I said. I haven't listened back to it yet. I probably should.
A great show.
So they said. Second of all, of course, as always, ever faithful now, Jill's in the blood. Matt, how are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you, mate. Yeah, still buzzing after Saturday. Really good performance, wasn't it? And looking forward to Wednesday and this quick turnaround.
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, but I'm really pleased we're there, put it that way. And a man who's been faithful since day one, one who's probably believed since day one as well, like genuinely. Mr. Jack Shields, how are you coping with the nerves, mate? You all right?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, Denmark, it's going to be in the bag, isn't it? I mean, we've overcome Germany. No, in all seriousness, I think it's just nice to have a bit of positivity, isn't it? Not just with football, with everything that's gone on the last year or so. And bring it on. I think everyone's getting behind it, and every game's getting bigger, but every game's getting more exciting. And there's a chance that we could do it, but come on, let's get behind them.
I don't like what's happening up in Scotland at the minute. We've gone from like the last time we got to the semis, like, you're going out every round, and me being like, no, you're crapping yourself a bit. Now it's like Scottish people going, you'll be all right. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. I don't want you to tell me you're going to be all right. No, it's not. It's really not. It unnerves me more than it should, but well, you never know. I'll start with the Ukraine game, of course. As I said, we're doing a review and a preview show, such as timescales allow. So I'll come to you first, Birkenhead Matt. I'm not sure I've ever had such nerves for a game, only to be able to put my feet up and relax with about 30 minutes or so to go. What did you make of the game?
Well, I had to watch it. Excuse me. I was working. Like, obviously, the clubs are back, and it's table service. And we opened 8 on a Saturday, and we were like, is anyone going to even be there? I had me Mac and the iPlayer just watching it, and I can't hear the commentary. And it was that early goal. And it's a cliche, don't care who you support, but if you get that early goal, it changes the game, because the concern was always going to be, wasn't it, that they were just going to sit Ukraine. That's how they've played all their games, to be honest. That's how they got through the group, was sitting, and then they hit you on the break with like Yarmolenko. And because they've got some good players. His name is just, what's the guy from Atlanta? He's my favourite player, and it's just, my mind's gone blank.
I know who you mean. Everyone will know who you mean.
He's fantastic for Atlanta, and I love Atlanta. And
Yarmolenko.
No, what is his name?
Was he the other lad up front?
Yeah, he was good though, wasn't he? Number 9. He's a handful. It was just the sort of performance that, I presume, Gillingham fans and Tranmere fan, it's sort of performance that in big games we're not used to seeing from our clubs. We're used to, like you say, the last half hour of a game normally is, even if we were 4-0 up, you're going, we'll still find a way to balls this up. But this squad is different, isn't it? This set of lads is different. And that performance was as complete a major tournament performance as I've ever seen in my lifetime from the England team. I think the only one that comes to mind is the Holland game in Euro 96.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we spoke about it in the last one. We talked about the Euro 96 one. it's romanticised a lot because of, football coming home. It was a lovely summer, sunny. We didn't play that well in any of the games other than probably the Germany game and the Holland game. We were poor against Scotland, poor against Switzerland, and got lucky against the Spanish. This tournament, we've got better and better as the game's gone through. And we look like, we made it look easy, didn't we? A quarter-final of the European Championship. So, yeah, a great performance, great team performance. And, Sancho came in. Sancho was unbelievable, wasn't he? He was unbelievable. And people were clamouring for him. And then Grealish didn't get a minute. Foden didn't get a minute. The subs that he made. And normally you'd look at subs like that in a game and go, is that weakening the squad? Not a single one of them subs weakened that team. I know we were 3-0 and 4-0 up at the time, but still, just what a performance.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I can't add much more to that, but nonetheless, I'll try and get Matt to see if he can add more. Southern Matt, as I'm going to refer to you now as. Matt, what did you make of it? Obviously, great performance, but what were your thoughts?
I think I said over the weekend to someone, I think I was talking to my old man and said about it, and said, I don't recall a tournament in all my time watching the national side where we've played 2 knockout games, whether that be a World Cup or a European Championship, and I've not felt nervous at all. Even the German game going into the last 15 minutes, never felt like we were in any bother, aside from when Raheem Sterling decided to try and help him out, but because he felt sorry for him. But the Ukraine game, like the other Matt said, was brilliant because we scored early, and we knew the longer it went on, if they sat in, tried to make it difficult for us, we might have got a bit twitchy. We didn't have that Wembley roar to help us out. But Harry Kane scoring inside 4 minutes effectively won us the game, because the only time they really looked like they was causing us a problem was by accident, when they had to take their centre off when he got injured, and they had to change the shape, and they had a little spell right up to half time. There was one, I think, Carl Walker, sloppy back pass. They got in. John Stones done well to show the fella onto his left foot, and Jordan Pickford made a fairly routine save. But apart from that, we were very, very comfortable, and it only looked like we was only going to ever be in trouble if we caused it ourselves, which we did on that occasion. But as soon as Slabhead nodded in that second just after half time, it was a walk in the park, wasn't it? And that's no disrespect to Ukraine. We were very comfortable. We barely got out of third gear, and we've won pretty comfortably. We've spoken about Gareth Southgate so many times on this podcast over this tournament. He just keeps getting it right. Team selection. I tweeted Sunday morning and said, we all have our opinions on who should be playing and who should be playing where. But at the moment, frankly, I don't care who he picks, because he's proven game after game after game in this tournament that he's got it absolutely spot on. 5 consecutive clean sheets. It's never been done before at a European Championship, I don't think. We said after the first game and the Scotland game that you don't win tournaments in the group stage. You can only get knocked out. We're starting to look more of a threat going the other way. We're scoring more. Harry Kane's up and running and playing like the Harry Kane that we know. I'm very confident against this Danish side. The only thing in the back of my mind is this whole Christian Eriksen thing, that, they're playing for Christian Eriksen. And if it was Denmark playing any other team, you'd want Denmark to win. But obviously we have to try and take that out of the equation. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to be good enough to see off Denmark, like I said on Saturday, if we do everything correctly again, and we don't just turn up and think that we've got a divine right to go through to this final at Wembley. But I don't think Gareth Southgate and his coaching team will allow that, and I don't think the players will allow that to happen themselves. So I'm very confident, and it could be another very, very good knockout performance from Gareth Southgate's England side.
I think as well, you've got, this team's had a semi-final already. It's not like the last time where it was a bunch of youngish lads at their first tournament. I know there's still a few that's still their first tournament, but Stones, Pickford, just off the top of my head, Maguire, it's their second tournament, it's their second semi-final. And I remember how much the Croatia game hurt, to the point where I was just like, I can't speak about this currently. I just need to take it on board that they were the better team, and that's it. I think me going, obviously having tickets to the game, which was a dynamite gamble, by the way, I must say, that was a great gamble for myself to buy tickets in advance and pay silly money. But I feel there's a part of me where I'm a bit more confident because I know they've been there, and I know they've felt the same hurt that I felt, and probably more so because it's their professional careers. And that makes me feel like it doesn't really matter what Denmark team show up. They shouldn't allow that to overcome our team, which is on paper, which football's not played on. It is better, as we said about the Ukraine game. But Jack, before we go on to sort of other aspects of the game. Is there anything that you can add to what we've already said already, or happy as Larry?
Yeah, just very, very happy. It's unusual watching England and being so comfortable. We've kind of been, on edge pretty much all the time England are in tournaments, haven't we? Whether it's either, we need a goal or it's going extra time or dreaded penalty shootout. And I think it just shows the maturity. And I think not just the maturity of the lads that they're significantly better mentally than physically as well 3 years ago. But I think what it shows is that they get the job done, don't they? Do you know what I mean? I think, there's often, a lot of hysteria around an England team, isn't there? There's always someone being injured going into the tournament, and this is going to be our year. And I think it's just they're getting the job done. They're winning football matches, keeping clean sheets for fun, and I think it's just really we're getting more hype than they are. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just it's a very calm squad. They're calm, they believe in their abilities, and yeah, I think it's unusual because the only worry I had was that Ukraine were going to fight and going to make it difficult. It was going to be a 0-0. Our lads were going to underperform, weren't going to create. A bit like the Scotland game, do you know what I mean? I think not for effort. I think the lads did try against Scotland, but I think we were a bit flat. Didn't know how to break them down. Obviously, Scotland upped the game, and I had a slight thing in the back of my head: are Ukraine going to up the game, and are they going to frustrate us, and we're going to be sloppy? And it was just not like that. From the third or fourth minute, whenever it was, when Harry Kane got that goal, everything just seemed to flow. The movement was there, the speed, the intensity was there, and I agree with what the other lads have said. We seem to be getting better. Every match we're playing, we seem to be improving. And really, I think with the home crowd behind us on Wednesday, Denmark, they're a decent team. Don't get me wrong. Any team that gets to a major semi-final, should I say, have to be respected. But I think, if we play even 90%, 80, 90%, I think we'll have too much for Denmark. I really do.
Yeah, I hope so as well, significantly. I'm just nervous because I'm an England and Sunderland fan, which I'm sure you'll feel the same with your respective clubs. Jack, I'll stick with you in terms of performances from the Ukraine game. It's hard to pinpoint who was player of the match, and it's been like that an awful lot during the tournament where you've gone, well, it's just been good performances 9 times out of 10, apart from Scotland game. Luke Shaw, outstanding. Harry Kane looked like Harry Kane. Harry Maguire looks like he's not been out for 3 months. He's turned into like Maldini out of nowhere. I used to not rate him that highly, and he's superb. I'm totally wrong. I thought Declan Rice was great. I thought Calvin Phillips was excellent. Jadon Sancho, that Matt touched on before. But if you had to pick out players that stood out for you, who would be the players that you were most impressed with in the game on Saturday?
I would say the two that came straight to my head were Shaw and Kane. I thought Luke Shaw down the left-hand position was superb. The deliveries into the box, the areas he was getting in, the speed up that left-hand side at which he was joining in as an attack. Was fantastic. I think it's a great option to have full backs the bomb on. It gives you so much width in final areas. I mean, a lot of the, pretty much all the goals were from, bar the first one were crosses, and I think that gives you that extra impetus from wide areas, and it allows you to stretch your defence against a team that was always going to be defensive and try and frustrate us, to have full backs pushing on, like Luke Shaw did to a great extent, and success on Saturday. It provided us just that extra option in the final third. I thought it was excellent. Solid going back as well. I can't recall any time he was troubled by any of the Ukrainian players coming at him or even getting past him. So not only good going forward, which is always important, but the main thing is that he was solid at the back, and he was. You know what I mean? So I think Luke Shaw stood out, and I think obviously Harry Kane. You want your talismanic striker to be scoring goals, and after the first couple of games, it was like, is he going to be there? But now 3 goals in the last 2 games, exactly like the Harry Kane you'd expect to see, isn't it? Sharp, aerial threat. Movement's excellent, and getting on the end of chances, which is he's made his career out of. And not only that as well, though, linking up better. You know what I mean? I think the last couple of games he seemed to link up with the midfield a little bit more and just being more involved in the game as well. Do you know what I mean? It's such a cliche that strikers get judged on goals, but I think his overall performance and contribution has been a lot better the last couple of games. First couple of games, people saying, why, take Harry Kane off, and he hasn't done anything, and what's he contributing? Whereas nobody, even if you take the goals away, the last couple of games, everyone can say that Harry Kane's played a huge part in England as an attacking unit, I feel, in the last couple of games. So I would say they were the two that stood out. But, all over the park, at the back in the midfield, the players you've touched on, Grim. I can't recall anybody really that had a bad game, even an average game. Pretty much everyone was at least a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And it was a comfortable evens performance.
Looking ahead, Matt, keeping on Harry Kane, is it just me, or if the only disappointing aspect of that night was the fact that his volley didn't break the back of the net? Because that would have been iconic, wouldn't it, if that went in?
Just unmute myself there. I'm glad you brought that up because it's been going through my head since.
What a goal it would have been, man.
I finally managed to find, I don't know where it was, I think it was the ITV. They've done like a raw highlight. Do you like BT Sport do like Champions League Raw? And it's like raw footage of, and I've been waiting going, why have we not seen the angle from just behind him? You sure we could see, and it was going in the top bin. What a goal. I think it got like made slightly better by the fact we scored off the resulting corner, didn't we? Henderson scored. But just when he hit that, that just shows the difference there. He tried something similar early in, I think it was the Germany game, and he tried something in the Czech game, and it just, I think one went flying over the bar and one went out for a goal kick. And he did just seem almost like, he was getting a lot of stick that is now looks ridiculous. But at the time, he just didn't seem right, did he? Seemed off. Just
he was dropping too deep, wasn't he, previously?
Yeah, dropping too deep. And you couldn't quite put your finger on it. And then the goal goes in against Germany. And that was almost like, the Germany game was almost, not again another cliche, the turning point where the belief sort of kicked in and we all went, okay, right, this team's different. This is a different England. I think the biggest moment we're going to look back at is Thomas Muller's miss that still gives me, I haven't slept since, to be honest, since that. As he went through on goal, you were like, oh, here we go again. It's all happening again. And then we went and scored almost a couple of minutes later, didn't we? Straight away got the second. Yeah. And just the whole performance, you touched on a few of the players there. Mason Mount came back in and he'd been, obviously unable to play because of the Billy Gilmore thing. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, mad.
Sancho comes in. There was the other highlight of the game for me, other than the Kane volley, was that little run Sancho did down on the left-hand side near the end of the first half. And he beat about 3 players. He got fouled once, carried on, and then got fouled again, and the ref pulled it back for a free kick. And I just watched that and I was like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, this is a player who hasn't played in the first 4 games. And he's come in and you look at him and you go, how can you drop him? But then you look at, Saka after his performance in the Czech Republic game and the Germany game, you go, how can you drop him? Grealish. The abundant of just riches we've got of attacking talent is phenomenal. The only weak part you'd say maybe is the centre halves, where if there's an injury or a suspension, I don't think there can be a suspension now, can there? Everything's reset. But if Stones...
This is a red.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Which, fingers crossed, there's not. If Stones or Maguire got injured, Cody and Mings aren't quite the same level. Mings did brilliantly in the games he played, but they're not quite... That unit there, that back 4 of Shaw, Walker, Stones, Maguire, and Pickford behind him, is such a settled back 4. But it showed, in the Germany game, if we need to go to a back 5, Trippier comes in. And it's such a strong squad of every single player in that squad. And Southgate touched on it, didn't he, after the game? He said, the hardest thing for him is telling the 3 lads that can't make the squad. Or was it 4? Whatever.
3,
the lad, 3 that can't make the match day squad. And explaining to them. But he said, even them, they're all... It's such a united squad. All those behind-the-scenes videos I keep seeing that the England Twitter puts out, this is a different set of lads, isn't it? It really is, compared to the almost toxic and poisonous cliques that have been there in the past. That isn't there. And they seem such a level-headed bunch. And I'm proud that they're representing England. Because we've had some idiots, haven't we, representing us, and stupid, and just people you're like, bloody hell, they chat nonsense. But every interview they give, from Southgate all the way down through all the players, they seem to be the same as us, and no one's getting carried away yet. But there's real belief there. And I don't think the real belief was there in the Croatia game, was that we almost felt like it was, we were just happy to be there. We're not happy to be in this semi-final, and it's the Wembley factor too. We haven't touched on that yet. It's now semi-final and a possible final at Wembley. It just is, as a few people have mentioned, that Christian Eriksen factor is just hanging over us, isn't it? Yeah. And you just think, is it another 92? Is Denmark's name on this trophy?
There's an element of it, but I suppose touching slightly on the Denmark game, and I could be proven wrong, as I always say, but there's a part of me that thinks Denmark were probably more motivated to play well and win a game for Christian Eriksen. I've never seen them more motivated than the game against Belgium. And Belgium's quality just told. And I mean, there's plenty of times when, you're desperate to win a game. We've seen your team sweat blood and tears on the pitch and it's just not quite been good enough. Me and Jack will probably attest back to the Man City versus Sunderland game. We did nothing wrong in that cup final, but Yaya Toure scored a goal from 45 yards out. What do you do about that? And I'm not saying we're going to score 45-yard goals, but the difference between them is if we have that little bit more quality. But anyway, I'm going into it anyway too far. But Matt, Southern Matt, I'll come to you as well because I've primed this question specifically for you. Southgate played an absolute blinder again. Other Matt touched on the fact that Sancho hasn't had a look in, and he potentially could have been man of the match for me. He looks fresh as a daisy. How big of a part does Jadon Sancho play in the games that hopefully 2 games that we have left moving forward?
A huge part he has to, doesn't he? I mean, Northern Birkenhead, Matt, what's his name? said, it's you pick a player and you go, he's had a belter. You can't leave him out, but then he picks someone else and they have a belter and you say you can't leave them out, and then he's having to leave some out. And like we've mentioned, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's another one who's barely featured. Marcus Rashford's barely featured. I think he had something like 26 goal contributions last season for Man United.
Reece James and Ben Chilwell won the Champions League and they've played 1 game between them.
Ben Chilwell's not had a minute yet, has he?
No.
Absolutely right. I know we had the COVID thing with him as well, which was ridiculous, like we've already said. But yeah, Champions League winners barely getting a minute. Foden, we thought was going to start every game at the start of the tournament, if you believe the press. Barely had a kick. In terms of those that were probably slightly under par for me during the Ukraine game, I thought Kyle Walker just looked a little bit lax a couple of times, but he's been prone to that throughout his career. Mm-hmm. The only good thing with Kyle Walker is he's got such blistering pace that he tends to get himself out of trouble. And the only other, I just thought the game passed Mason Mount by at times. I'm not saying he was poor. There was no one that was poor, but I just think because we know how good he is as well, I just think there were times when it was just sort of the game was being played around him. But maybe that's because Sterling was very good and Kane was very good and Shaw was very good and Sancho come in and drew attention away from him as well. So maybe I'm doing Mason Mount a bit of a disservice, but I just thought that wasn't his best performance. But the good thing with this England side is that if 1 or 2 are only a 6 or a 7, the others are all sort of 7s, 8s and 9s, dare I say it, at the moment. And that was the case again. And Luke Shaw, I think, was justifiably man of the match. I thought he was absolutely superb. Defensively, we've already mentioned, didn't give anyone a kick. And his delivery was spot on and 2 assists. And Harry Kane as well was involved in all 4 goals, wasn't he? Scored the first, fouled for the second, scored the third and won the corner for the 4th one, and was a couple of fingertips away from scoring one of the European Championship goals. I think a couple of people said it would have been up there with Van Basten.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it was quite that good, based just on the angle, but it would have been a bloody good goal if it had gone in the top corner. And but maybe saving that for the semi-final and the final.
I was going to ask Jack this, but I've realised that me and Jack will be far too biased to answer this question, so I'll come back to you, Matt. Southern Matt. This is going to become a thing all through the show. I didn't think this through. Jordan Henderson, I love him for obvious reasons. He looks match fit. Rice and Calvin Phillips have been excellent, and I'm not saying in any way, shape, size, or form that they deserve to be dropped. But because of these big, important games, and you've got a guy who's won the league, won the Champions League, and he's in the prime of his career, probably, I would say. Does Jordan Henderson come in now?
Based on them 2 things, you'd have to say yes. But if you're looking at performances, I think it's tough to leave them 2 out. They've done absolutely nothing wrong. They've given us this base, and it comes back to people who know better than Southgate, saying we shouldn't play 2 defensive midfielders in certain games, and I was probably one of them against the Czech Republic. I said we could afford to leave either or out. But what they do is they allow the Sterlings and the Grealishes and the Mounts and the Fodens and the Rashfords and the Kanes and the whoever else I forgot to mention
Sancho
that play in that front 4 to go and just annihilate back fours, back threes, and that's what we've seen in the 2 knockout games. I think we took a while to get going. Maybe we took a while to learn how exactly we wanted to play. Maybe Southgate didn't know his best 11 because he has got such an abundance of riches in forward areas. But it comes back to the fact that we've played 5 games, we've won 4 of them, we've not conceded, we're scoring plenty now at the knockout time, which is the most crucial time in the tournament. He's not doing anything wrong, Gareth Southgate. I could totally understand if Jordan Henderson did start against Denmark, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's wrong if he's on the bench again, because it would be unfair on the 2 that have been in there throughout the whole tournament. They've been absolutely spot on. And you know, considering their age and where Calvin Phillips has come from in the last 2 years, and Declan Rice, they've been phenomenal. So if you was asking me to say, would I put him in? Probably no.
I wouldn't argue with that, to be fair.
If it was a Portugal or a France, I think you'd be more inclined. But no disrespect to Denmark, they're probably a step up on Czech Republic that we beat in the group. They're probably a step up on Ukraine that we beat on Saturday. But they're not better than Germany. And Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips both started against Germany and were very, very impressive. So for me, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
I'm a big fan of Declan Rice, and I didn't think I was before the tournament. I didn't dislike him, but I think it's not just the way he plays, it's the fact that he managed to do something funny every single game. I don't know whether you've seen it, but he's obviously the Germany game, he collapsed and then still tried to celebrate and collapsed anyway. This game, I think it's Harry Kane jumps on top of Harry Maguire
with a choke slam on BBC Sport, yeah.
And his face is just like, you need to stop, I can't breathe.
His eyes are starting to bulge out of his head, aren't they? Yeah.
And he just doesn't say anything. Have you seen
the behind-the-scenes video today?
No.
On Twitter, they put them during the swimming pool on the bloody
inflatable
flamingos or something. Yeah, and the unicorns. And right at the end of the video, I think it's Jack Grealish holds out this inflatable shark, and Declan Rice just goes, "It's Edge," and spears this shark, like Edge the wrestler, into the swimming pool. And you're just thinking, like, how long till we get a report going? Declan Rice has separated his shoulder, frolicking in the swimming pool, and we'll miss the rest. But like, it's just seeing them, and there's some great videos of Saka. He's just come a cropper on one of them unicorns. His face, he's just like they just seem to be like a different set of lads. It's not like any set, even the World Cup group. This is just such a, and the average age isn't. I think it's Kyle Walker, the oldest, at like 31, or
Henderson, I think, yeah.
Who's in the, like you said, he's in the prime. So it really is just, you know.
I mean, it could go all egg on our faces. There's still 2 games to go. But, I mean, I think the amount of players, when we look back and go, why did it look... Say the bad news happens, or even if the good news happens, and we look back and say, why did that tournament work so well? It's not just that they're good players, but they're young, they're in their prime, but they've got boatloads of experience. Like we talked about there, Reece James is a relatively new player. He was on loan at Wigan 2 years ago. Yeah, he's won the Champions League. He's picked up Champions League experience a year before the tournament. I almost feel like this extra year delay has really helped England as a tournament. It's really helped us because Grealish has got now 2 years. Grealish is hitting his pump. Like Saka's emerging through. Jadon Sancho has been electric for Dortmund. Harry Kane's gone from being probably the best striker in the Premier League to potentially the best striker in the world. And I don't think that's saying anything mental. I really don't. I think there's only maybe Lewandowski that could challenge him. And you've got all these players. Maybe a year ago, we might not have been saying these things about these players. The scary thing for the rest of the world potentially is if we don't win this one, all these players are going to have 2 years experience in them come the next tournament. And if we're getting this far with this amount of players who are only in their first tournament, like if it doesn't come this time, something's coming. I'm suddenly confident that we might win something in my lifetime. I just pray to God that it's this one particularly, because I'd be quite happy not to win any more. As long as we win one, I'm happy with that. And I'll say that on record. I'm fine with it. Jack, I want to ask you a question about Denmark. We're moving to the Denmark game now. As I said before, I took the gamble on the tickets before the Ukraine game. It sounds very complicated, but there was a good chance we were going to beat Ukraine. So I thought, well, fair enough. So that gamble's paid off, which is brilliant. Would I do the same for the final? I don't know, because Denmark feel like a different proposition to Ukraine, wholly different. They're the last side to beat us at Wembley, bearing in mind it was against what have ended up being 9 men, but 10 men for most of the game. But how good are Denmark?
I think they are pretty good. I would agree with you on that one. I think they're a definite step up from Ukraine. I would kind of have them in like the next bracket down from the top teams. Do you know what I mean? You have to class England as a top team now, I would say, on this performance. But you've got your maybe England, Portugal, France, Italy, Spain to a certain extent, Germany. Maybe that's kind of the top bracket of teams. I wouldn't put Denmark in that bracket, but I would certainly put them down in the next bracket as a good team. Do you know what I mean? I think they've got some decent individuals, and I think yes, they had a bad start. Obviously, with what happened with Christian Eriksen was horrendous to see. As someone who's had cardiac problems myself, I know it's horrendous to be in that environment. But I think that has spurred them on a little bit. They've gritted the teeth. Yeah, they lost the second game, but they managed to get the job done in the third game and go through, and then beat a pretty good Wales team. And I thought that would have been a quite a close game against Wales. Trounced them 4-0, absolutely dominated. And then didn't play hugely well, but got the job done against Czech Republic. So I think we shouldn't think it's going to be as straightforward as the Ukraine game. They are a better team than Ukraine. And I mean, Carl, is it Braithwaite or Brathwaite? I don't know how to pronounce it. He plays for Barcelona. Braithwaite, yeah, plays for Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? So judging by that as a yardstick, I don't know a great lot of the individuals, but him and one or two others, they have some good players in that squad. Even looking at the goalkeeper, Kasper Schmeichel. Do you know what I mean? He's a top goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers probably in the Premier League. He's won a Premier League title. Do you know what I mean? So they have players that have played at the top caliber, but there will be underdogs. Graham, make no mistake about it. England will be the favourites, and I think, without sounding too arrogant, I think we need to not look so much at what Denmark are going to do, because I think they'll be looking at it that way. They'll be looking at the game as pressures on England. We're going to focus our game plan on stopping England, and I think we shouldn't focus too much on Denmark. I really do think that this team, for the reasons we've given, I think if we just focus on how we play and getting most out of our players and getting our tactics right, I don't think Denmark stop us. If we play really well, even 70-80% as well as we did on Saturday, I think we beat Denmark. And I'm not saying we should go 70-80%, but I'm just saying I think if we get close to that level in terms of looking solid at the back, winning the midfield battles, keeping the possession, and then looking so threatening going forward, I think if we do that against Denmark, I don't think they stop us winning. I think we go through in 90 minutes, maybe 1-0, 2-0.
God, I hope so. Birkenhead, Matt, obviously, I think ultimately England, we haven't conceded in 5. We've just basically waltzed into the semis, if we're completely honest. We're at home in front of 60,000 fans, which is the first time in however many months that 60,000 people have been in the ground, probably across the world, I think. Have Denmark got enough about them, circumstances in mind and who they're playing for and why they want to go further in the tournament, but have they got enough quality to upset England and cap off what would basically be like a complete fairy tale for them just to get to the final?
I think they do. I think obviously we're all, there's a real wave of optimism over here. We're all caught up in it. But just because they aren't, we're not playing Italy or Spain or Belgium in this game, their squad is full of just real quality players. They all play, in the Premier League. There's a lot of them playing the Bundesliga. Like I say, Braithwaite plays for Barcelona. And I know obviously, his transfer there was a whole palaver. But they've got quality, and you've seen they've got quality. Eriksen missing is huge for them because he was the playmaker. He was their number 10. Everything went through him, but they've adapted how they play, and they're a very tough team to play against. Of all the teams, like you said, the level below what you'd call the top, like you say, put England in there with Italy, Spain, Belgium, Germany. They regularly get results against the top teams, for want of a better phrase, and they've always been like that. And I keep just getting Euro 92 comes in the back of my head where it's such a similar scenario. They weren't qualified. They were called up 2 weeks before the tournament because Yugoslavia were banned. And they, the famous story, they were on holiday. Peter Schmeichel was on holiday when he got the call going, get back here. We've got a train. We've got a tournament. And they end up going through, and they beat Holland on penalties in the semi-final. And I can't get that image out my head of if it goes, they've been there before and they've done this in a European Championships. But we've just got to be confident of ourselves. Like, it's hard for us as England fans, and again as fans of our respective teams, to be confident, because we're not used to that, are we? We don't support these teams that win all the time. But the squad we've got, the players we've got, man for man, they are better than the Danes. I think our performances throughout the tournament have been better than Denmark. Obviously, they've had a couple of real good ones, and they've been similar to us in that they started slow. Obviously, they had the terrible Ericsson situation, got beat by Finland. Unlucky to be beat by Belgium, but they've got better and better in each game, just as we have. And I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think we've got enough. And as Southern Matt touched on earlier, it's just, for instance, say Sancho starts and isn't having a good game. Well, fine. You've got Saka, Grealish, Foden, Rashford. Who do you bring on? There's no shortage of players. If a couple of players are having a bad game, there's so much depth there. That's the one thing we've got over them. And I think, we've got game changers on the bench, so many of them, not one or two like we've had in the past. We've got so many. And they haven't really, they've got good players on the bench, good solid players. I presume John Dahl Thomason's on the bench for them. I presume.
John Jensen got, as well.
Yeah, just, they'll do a job. They're still...
I think is Thomas Gravison patrolling the midfield? Like, is he in there?
Yeah,
what just, a guy.
They've had some good players, haven't they? And they still have. I love Holberg for them. I think he's a real,
brilliant player.
What a solid footballer. They haven't got the star players. Ericsson's probably their big star player, isn't he? And he's not there, so
he is their best player.
Yeah. We've just got to be wary of them. But I think the Wembley crowd. There's going to be a thing about it as well. In the past was, and you felt it in the Scotland game a bit, where the fans would get on the team a little bit. If things weren't going well at Wembley, I think even if we go a goal down, they're not going to turn on the players. There'll be an even bigger roar. It'll be on you. There'll be one boo, and it'll be coming from you in your Sunderland. Boo! I think we've got everything in the tank there to beat them. We've just got to turn up, and I believe we will. If one player is not having a good game, there's so many players on the bench there. You can bring on game changer players all over the pitch.
There's just an element, isn't there, where you get to like this stage in the competition with England, the semi-final, and you just go, "Oh shit, what could go wrong?" I don't feel like the team have that mentality. And you know what? Anything could happen in a game of football, and people could go, "You were wrong with that." But I don't think any of those players are going to go into this tournament, into this game in particular, with the mindset that we may have as fans. That's how I perceive them when I see them on the telly. They seem like from day one they've gone, "We're the best team in the tournament, we'll win it." It's just felt like that, even when I haven't believed it, and I don't know what it is, but there's, like you said before, if we go 1-0 down on this last minute, I feel like there's a genuine belief that the fans will be like, we're good enough to get this back, and they will get behind them. I think the fans are getting to a point now where we're determined to at least make a final. But here's a question for you, Matt, in regards to the game. We're the favourites because it's Denmark, because we're higher ranked, better players, all that kind of stuff. But would you prefer to have like maybe someone like Italy or Holland or Spain in the semi-final, or would you prefer just to get them in the final?
On paper, I'd say give us the easiest route possible, to a final. You're not going to turn your nose up, are you? If you said, would you rather be playing Italy, Spain, or Denmark in the semi-final, I'd choose Denmark, and that's no disrespect to them. If you asked any of those 14, us, Italy, and Spain, who would you rather play? We'd all pick Denmark. But by the same token, I don't think any of those teams want to play us. I wouldn't. I think Italy are very similar to us in the way they've gone through this tournament. They rebuilt it completely. Not that we had to rebuild completely, but this has been coming for 6 or 7 years. We've been hoping that this group of players would come through and reach their potential and live up to expectations, and they are. And Italy are doing the same. In that, I don't think anyone expected either of us to win the tournament at the start. If you know what I mean, like there was no pressure from the media from either side. But then there's a real groundswell of both teams as we've gone through the tournament that we are finally, hitting those expectations. I'd like to, I think an Italy-England final will be a hell of a game of football, and I do think they'll beat Spain. Although, like say, Spain have had, what a story they've had, the way they've come through their games. They won a penalty shoot, they had the worst penalty shootout record than us. They finally won one of them, coming through extra time against Croatia. Even in the group, remember, they didn't win either the first 2 games, didn't score, and it was a huge crisis. Oh no, Spain, what a crisis! And then they go and thump Slovakia 5-0. So, yeah, anyone would have chose Denmark, and it's got no disrespect to them. But no team will want to be playing us. I truly believe that, the way we're playing at the minute.
I agree, actually. On the other side looking in, I think someone the other day said Someone on Twitter, not English, said anyone looking at watching the Italy versus Belgium game, no matter who wins, all the other teams in this tournament must be shitting themselves. And I thought, well, when you watch England at the minute, you must be shitting yourself as well if you're not English, because we're playing that well. And obviously anything can unravel at any point, but like at the moment, in the moment that we're speaking, that is very much the case. So then, Matt, I'll come to you for the next one. But when we looked at Ukraine, there was two names that popped out, Yarmolenko and Zevchenko. With Denmark, there's Braithwaite, Delaney, Christiansen, Højlberg, Dolbert, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Mahler, Schmeichel. There's a lot better team there, which we've sort of touched on. But do you think when you match them players up one by one, there's any Danish players that you would rather have than an English player?
No. Maybe one.
Who would it be?
Schmeichel.
Over Pickford?
Sorry to upset you and Jack. And Pickford's been absolutely brilliant all tournament, but I think Kasper Schmeichel's one of the best keepers in European football at the moment.
Yeah, he's great. Like it's a definite debate. We're very biased.
But like I say, that's no detriment to Jordan Pickford at all. And I know you two are more biased than most of us, but there's just something about.
He's a leader as well, isn't he? He's experienced.
He's a proper bloke as well, yeah, and a proper human being. And we've seen that with the, unfortunately, the two tragedies that he's had to put up with in the last 3 years. The one with the Leicester City owner, he was the first out on the scene, wasn't he? And then he was one along with Simon Kjær that was first on the scene when Christian Eriksen collapsed a few weeks ago. And I just think in terms of, he's probably a slightly more solid keeper because he's more experienced than Jordan Pickford in my eyes. Certainly a much bigger leader and personality. But that's not to say that I'm not unhappy with Jordan Pickford being our number one. But if you go through the rest of the team, it's tricky, isn't it? I can't see anyone else getting in. Maybe Højlberg, like we said, maybe over one of Rice or Phillips. That would probably be it. In attacking sense, absolutely not. I wouldn't take any of their players over most of our substitutes, to be quite honest, and that's not being horrible to them. And it comes back to the same question that you asked us for the Ukraine game, isn't it? We'd much rather be sitting here having the England squad to pick from for a semi-final than we would the Denmark squad. It's better players in the first 11, and it goes much, much deeper than the Denmark squad. But at the same time, it comes back to the thing that I've mentioned before the German game, before the Ukraine game, that we've still got to turn up and do everything properly from first whistle to last. We can't just turn up and think we've got better players, so we're automatically going to get ourselves into a European Championship final. We've got to earn that right. And I'm confident that Gareth Southgate, first and foremost, and his coaching staff will pick the right team, the right personnel, the right system. And I'm as confident that personnel and that system will go out and implement that game plan and have enough for us to get over the line.
There was a reason I asked that question, because I had a feeling that might be the one person you would pick. And my mind, when I'm thinking about the game, about match winners and getting people in places, my mind cast back to the Leicester-Chelsea game where all the fans were back in Wembley for the first time. And for me, Schmeichel won Leicester the FA Cup with that save he made near the end. Absolutely tremendous. I think if the game goes as we expect, England will probably be the more offensive team, probably be the team with the majority of chances. Can Kasper Schmeichel pull off another performance that he did for Leicester in the FA Cup final to keep us out? Has he got the kind of ability to keep our attack and defensive-ness out?
Yeah. I bloody hope he don't know. But I hope he has an absolute nightmare, to be honest. I hope he chucks everything in his net and proves me wrong, and then everyone can go, why did you say you wanted Kasper Schmeichel instead of Jordan Pickford on Thursday? But he's got it in him, of course he has. We only have to know who his father is to know that he comes from the highest of pedigree of goalkeepers. And I keep saying the same thing. If it was Denmark against anyone else and we wasn't in this competition, we'd all be rooting for Denmark and Kasper Schmeichel to go all the way.
Absolutely.
But we are still in it, and we've got to beat them. And I hope they have the worst performance possible.
Yeah, snap. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I want us to get to a European final and have a chance on Sunday to go and lift that trophy.
And that brings me up my next question, Jack, as we're coming towards the end of the pod. someone's got to win it, be it a Danish player, be it an English player. I'm not necessarily meaning the scorer or the person who gets the hat-trick or whatever it may be, but who's the person that wins the game for England or for Denmark on Wednesday?
I'm going to go with Raheem Sterling because I just think he's had such a brilliant tournament so far. I think he's a lad that's come under quite a lot of criticism in his club career and certainly his international career.
He's got a gun tattooed on his leg. Who's got a gun tattooed on his leg? What a bad lad.
Yeah. Well, like exactly that, Graham. Not only I was going to say not only for what he does on the field, but also off the field, he seems to be kind of criticised maybe slightly more than another player, and maybe he's a slight easy target. And I really think he's answered people today that say, "Oh well, he never turns up for England like he turns up for Man City." Well, he scored 3 goals. He's been a pivotal part in everything that we've done going forward. And I think I mentioned it last time. I think players that are on form in major tournaments just somehow seem to, provide the difference for their team. And I think that Raheem Sterling's one of the informed players in this tournament. He has been throughout the whole way through. He scored 3 goals. He's been involved in a few more. He's looked pacey, stretched defenders. He's caused all kinds of problems. And I really think if he has a good game and he causes problems and he has, as good as a tournament he has so far, I really think Denmark will be like other teams and they'll struggle to handle him. I think we've touched on, we've got so many options. It's going to be difficult, who to play. I think personally, I know what Gillingham Matt said in terms of if it's not broke, don't fix it type thing, and try and keep the team as close as you can to the last game. I would just make a couple of changes, and it's nothing against any of the lads that have kind of played badly around them, but I would play Henderson. Typical Mackham saying that, but I would play Jordan Henderson. Just I think his big game experience, seeing the game over the line might help us. I think maybe take Calvin Phillips out, who's probably hugely unlucky to lose his position, but I'll put Henderson in, and then maybe Grealish in for maybe Mason Mount, just because I think when Jack Grealish gets on the ball, he terrifies defenders, and I just think particularly in a tight game that Denmark might graft and might make it difficult and play really defensively and deny us space. I think Grealish might I hope it doesn't come down to one goal or one moment, but I think Jack Grealish might just provide that extra difference, that extra little bit, I don't know what you call it, star quality, shall we say, in the final third that might.
He's the Gaza, isn't he? He's the Gaza.
Exactly. That's it. You know what I mean? And sometimes he's the type of player that, he just does something strange, whether it's take on a player or nutmeg somebody or, win a penalty or something like that. I can't, put into words what I mean, but it just might be that little bit difference, that little bit star quality that might just get us over the line. But I really think that, Sterling could be the key for us, the way he's playing and, the goals and the assists he's had and involvement. And, I think he really could cause Denmark's defence all kinds of problems.
Do you think Sterling's been our best player in this tournament?
I think so, yeah. Overall, I think, we've got quite a few contenders, particularly the last couple of games. Kane, maybe even Calvin Phillips, Harry Maguire.
Luke Shaw's up there,
I think. Luke Shaw, definitely Luke Shaw. But yeah, I'd have to go Raheem Sterling.
Pickford, yeah.
Yeah, he's had. I wouldn't disagree. He's had 2 or 3 good games and a couple of good saves. A couple of outstanding saves. I think it was the Czech Republic game, or was it when he tipped that one over the bar? And he's had a couple of good saves. But yeah, Germany. I'd probably go. Germany, yeah, and I'd probably go Sterling. Yeah, I'd probably say I would agree with you on that one, Sterling.
Yeah, and me too, for what it's worth. Gillingham Matt, which I should have done from the start. Southern Matt sounds like I'm trying to separate the country, which to be fair I am, but there you go. Obviously, I think we're all going to go for England. The question I asked at the start was which English or Danish player is going to go for. All England fans were all hopeful, so we're going to go English player. Which player wins it? Which player gets us to the final for the first time since '66 for you, Matt?
I'm going to be boring and predictable. I'm going to say Harry Kane. I think he's up and running now. He's playing with confidence again. We've said that regarding that volley. He probably doesn't take that volley on or hit the target if it was earlier on in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He's back to doing what Harry Kane's been doing for the last 5-6 seasons in a Tottenham and England shirt. And I think ultimately, if it is a tight game, it could come down to the difference that we've got a world-class number 9 and quite frankly, they haven't.
Yeah, I mean, you're right in the sense that it's a boring answer, but you can't disagree with it. If there's one man that turns up on his day, then Harry Kane's obviously probably the best player out of both squads. I think in all honesty, for his work on the ball, his work off the ball, he's not just he's not like a Shearer, is he? He's more than that. Not that Shearer was bad. I know that's blasphemy on this podcast, but nonetheless, he was pretty decent in an England shirt. I'll give him that. Haircut, not quite as good.
Weetabix head.
Weetabix haircut. He needs to shave it off, Alan. Matt, Tranmere Matt, which I don't know. I've called you all sorts in this one. I should have just kept the Tranmere and Gillingham, shouldn't I?
I've been called worse. Yeah.
Even on this podcast.
But today by me missus as well.
Called you Scouse today as well, which is even worse, isn't it?
That was the most offensive thing that anyone's ever said to me. Yeah?
You're never coming back, are you? Who would be the man that wins the game for you? And it's fine if it's boring. You can give me a random one like John Dahl Thomason if you want. But
I can't argue. Sterling and Kane. I think Sterling has been our best player. Kane, is probably the best striker, number 9 in this tournament, the best one. I think outside the box, I think it's not one man. I think it's a defence. I think it's that centre-half partnership of Stones and Maguire that is back together and looks, what would it cost to get them together at the same club? Would City ever try? Would City and United ever go in for one or the other? Because them as a partnership is now, they were the partnership at the last World Cup. That's 2 semi-finals. And people forget, like Maguire, some people didn't think he was going to play a part at all in this tournament. There was, and then there was that one of in the past with Owen and Rooney and Beckham been injured, and you bring them in, they're not fit at the start of the tournament, and they come in, and they never quite look good enough. He's come back in, and it's like he's never been injured. He's straight back in. He scored the slabhead header, but he's just those two together, and he's a real leader, isn't he, Maguire? I don't think Stones is. It's very much, without getting into sexual fetishes here, the centre-half partnership needs, you have eyebrows raised. You need a dominant one and someone who all good centre-half partnerships are like that. And I think Maguire's the dominant one and Stones is the one who, takes the orders. What they get up to off the pitch is none of our business, is it? But, with their respective misses. But I think them as a partnership, and we've seen we can go to a back 5 if we need with Kyle Walker. Trippier can come in. Shaw, Luke Shaw's been a revelation, hasn't he? Shawberto Carlos, a few people have been calling.
That is brilliant. I have not heard that.
Harry Kane.
I saw that.
Yeah, so someone mocked up a Panini sticker with Shawberto Carlos on. So just if you had to pick one, I couldn't argue with it. Sterling and Kane, either of them, they've been the difference makers in this tournament, but like I said, we've got so many of them, it's so hard to pick just one.
I've just got visions of Harry Kane in a gimp mask now, and I can't get out of my head.
Well, that's your problem, not mine.
In terms of who I think will win the game for us, Sterling. I agree with Jack, and I think we've all agreed with each other in ways. I just think he's been our best player, and I just think even when he's sometimes frustrated, he's hung on to it a little bit too long. The minute that you start going, Sterling, he goes, what? And scores. So I'm going to go with Sterling. But before we go, as always, predictions and goal scorers. I don't think any of us have quite got it 100% right yet, so you never know. Actually, maybe we should all keep on getting it wrong because it's worked out. Jack, what's your score? Who's your scorers?
2-0. I'm going to go Sterling and Kane.
Gillingham, Matt.
2-0. Kane at the double.
Tranmere, Matt.
Only because I've got him each way at top scorer.
Yeah, I echo Gillingham, Matt. I think it's 2-0. I think Kane gets a brace.
1-0. Raheem Sterling.
I wouldn't like that 1-0 last few minutes.
That's too nervous. That's too nervous. I don't like that. No.
Extra time. Does it go to extra time or 90 minutes? 0-0 and get one in extra time?
Oh, God, no.
No. Had all this chat from minutes. You about the German game.
90 minutes, I'm going to say. As ever, thanks for joining us. Sorry there's not been 2 shows this week. Hopefully we've filled the gap, but it's bloody hard work. I think we've done about 20 of these during the tournament, but we fully enjoyed it because, England is still in it. Hopefully by the time we come back, England still will be in it because that would be a depressing review show if we're not. And hopefully we're back for the final with it as well. Keep the faith as always. Anyone, Gillingham fans, Tranmere fans, Sunderland fans, listen to that. You'll understand that turn of phrase if things don't go away. But again, as always, thanks for joining. Do subscribe if you can be bothered. If not, that's completely fine. Cheers. Bye-bye.